Hi everybody, I'm Mike McCrory and this is Would You Make It? In this video I'm going to focus on cutting out some wooden gears, and I have this template from Matthias Wandel, and I'll put a link to his website in the description of this video. So let's get started. I'm using 320 grit sandpaper to lightly sand the shellac to get it ready for the lacquer. Before applying the lacquer, I want to lay out the doors, the little doors that are going to have letters behind them, and then I will color in those letters, and then I can apply the lacquer on top of them. So I'm just using a pencil to hand mark some letters. These are 3D uppercase letters, and I'll color each one a different color. Next, I'm going to put the doors back and mark out the positions for the mortises for the hinges. After letting the ink dry for a few minutes, it's ready for the lacquer application. I let the lacquer dry for about 20 minutes, and now I'm going to install the cordless phone with some epoxy. The trick here is to put enough, but not so much that it drips down and interferes with the battery cover, because I want the battery cover to be removable so that we can add batteries into the phone. And now I'll use a chisel to cut out the mortises. I'm not really doing precision work here because it's just a kid's toy, but I'm making sure that I make them big enough so that the hinges will fit easily. Now a little test fit, and it fits well. I had to use epoxy for the doors to attach the hinges to make sure that the sharp points of the screws didn't protrude, but it's okay to use screws going into the board because the sharp points will be on the other side. Behind each door are the letters that spell Leo's name, and on the back side of each door are the letters A, B, C. Now moving on to the wooden gears, I've used some spray adhesive to attach the template onto the piece. I've got a piece of walnut and a piece of cherry for two different size gears. I'm using an awl to mark the points where I want the tip of the brad point drill bit to enter so that I can drill these out. By drilling these parts out on the drill press, it makes it a much easier job on the bandsaw to cut out the rest of the gear. So at the bandsaw, the first thing I'll do is cut a perimeter around the outside of the gear. It doesn't have to be very precise. I'll trim that up later. And then I'm using a 1/4 inch bandsaw blade, and I'm coming in and cutting out each of the teeth. The last step is to trim up the end of each tooth. Now I'm drilling a 1/4 inch hole in the center of each of the gears, and I'll use an awl with the gears positioned correctly to mark the holes that I need to cut in the board. I used a 1/2-inch Forstner bit to drill a recess into the backside of each of the gears, and now I'm using a smaller drill bit to drill all the way through, and that's to hold the screw that holds the knob in place. Now I'm using a fender washer, a 1/4-inch bolt, on the back side I'm putting another washer and a nut, and in fact I'm using 2 nuts so that they don't come loose. And when you use 2 nuts tightened up against each other, that's what you call a jam nut. And then just a few more components that I'm attaching with epoxy. This is an old squash ball. Well, that's the end of day 3, and the busy board is starting to take shape. Tomorrow I'm going to work on making a stand for the busy board so that it's stable and it doesn't have to be leaned up against a wall. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, it would mean a lot to me if you click on the like button, and if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please click on the subscribe button as well. See you tomorrow.